Howdy Trig friends. Today we're going to finish off this handout. Shouldn't take us too long to go through it. Basically we're going to be filling out this table, and we're going to be using this picture as just a little guide to help us understand what's going on. Note that we've already gone over these points right here. 1, 0, square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, and then 1/2 and root 3 over 2. And then it's got the following angles. And we talked about these in terms of terminal length before. We're going to look at them more in terms of angles. There's a radius of 1 for the unit circle. So in this case, the arc length and the angle as measured in radians are going to be one and the same. So the angle for this line is 0. The angle for this line is pi over 6. For here it's pi over 4, and for here it's pi over 3, and then don't forget pi over 2. Alright, so let's go ahead and examine this based off what we've learned so far. So cosine theta, well, that's going to be your x coordinate divided by the radius. Of course, the radius is just 1, which is x naught. And so for pi over 6, so cosine of pi over 6 would simply be root 3 over 2, kind of how we covered up here already. We're just assigning values to everything. So cosine would be root 3 over 2, root 3 over 2. And of course the cosine for the when it's at 0 would be 1. Alright, now for sine theta, we got y naught divided by the radius. Radius is 1, so it's simply y naught. So y naught is 1/2, or sine of pi over 6 is 1/2, should I say. Okay, so let's start going through the others. Tan theta equals sine theta over cosine theta, which again is just the y coordinate divided by the x coordinate. So y coordinate is 1/2, x coordinate is root 3 over 2. So the 1/2s cancel, and so we're left with 1 over root 3. We want to get the root 3 out of the denominator. And so we end up with root 3 divided by 3, and that would be tan theta for that one. Okay. Now let's look at cosecant theta. So cosecant theta is 1 over sine theta, which is going to be, just the opposite of what sine theta is. So sine theta y over r, so it turns into r divided by y naught. Of course, radius equals 1, so we're simply left with 1 over y naught. But this turns into 1 divided by 1/2, which is just 2. So cosecant pi over 6 is 2. Okay. Now secant of theta, that's 1 over cosine theta, which is the radius divided by the x coordinate, and of course the radius is just 1. So we have 1 over square root of 3 divided by 2, so that turns into 2 over root 3. Of course, we have a square root in the bottom. We've got to get that out. So we have root 3 over root 3, and this becomes 2 root 3 over 3, and that's our secant theta for pi over 6. So secant of pi over 6 is 2 root 3 divided by 3. Now for cotangent theta, this is 1 over tangent theta, which equals cosine theta over sine theta, which is just the x-coordinate divided by the y-coordinate. Notice that the radiuses, the two radius terms would have canceled each other out. Alright, so we just plug everything in. So the cosine value was root 3 over 2, and the y value was 1/2. Right? The 1/2s cancel each other out, and so we're simply left with root 3 for this one. Okay, so there we have it. We've got all the trig values done for pi over 6. Let's go ahead and take a look at this top part of it. We want to be able to convert between fractions of a turn, degrees, and radians. Again, since we're dealing with a unit circle, the arc length and the radians will be one and the same, so we can simply just fill that in. 0 pi over 6, pi over 4, just like so. Alright, so fractions of a turn and degree, a little more involved, but not too difficult. So basically we're going to set up something called dimensional analysis, and we'll do it for a couple, and we'll start noticing a pattern that we'll just be able to use to fill out the rest of the table here. So you start off with the radians, so we'll start off with pi over 6. And we want to convert that into degrees and then also for rotation. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, one rotation is the same as 360 degrees, which is the same as 2 pi radians, and we're going to divide everything in here by half. So 1/2 a rotation is the same as 180 degrees, which is the same as pi radians. Alright, so we want to get the units to cancel over here, so we've got pi radians and 180 degrees. Alright, so pi's cancel, and so we're simply left with 180 degrees divided by the number that was originally back there, which is 6, and this is going to turn into 30 degrees. So the degrees is 30 degrees. Now let's go ahead and convert into fractions of a turn. So again, pi over 6 radians, and in 1/2 of a rotation we have pi radians. So I want you to pay attention to what's about to happen. Right? Again, units are canceling just like they did before. That's what we want. The pi goes away, and now we're multiplying the two denominators together. So this is going to end up 1 over 6 times 2 rotations, which turns into 1/12 of a rotation. Okay, so we've got two things going on. Notice with the converting from radians to degrees, all we did was we get rid of the pi, and then we take 180 and divide it by whatever number is in the bottom. So for here, all we got to do is ask ourselves, okay, what is 180 divided by 4. And that's going to be 45 degrees. Alright, so over here, what is 180 divided by 3? Well, that's 60 degrees. And then what is 180 divided by 2? That is 90 degrees. And we've all heard the term 90-degree angle. Okay, so good. And then, of course, those are both 0 there. Alright, so now for the rotations, note all we did was we looked at to convert from radians to rotation, we just get rid of the pi, and then we double that number. That's what we're doing. So pi over 4, it represents 1/8 of rotation. Pi over 3 represents 1/6 of rotation. And pi over 2 represents 1/4 of a rotation. So good. We've got that whole top part filled out. Oh, here's another one we can get. 0 right there. So let's go ahead and go down the line for each angle and figure these all out. Tan is going to be sine divided by cosine. 0 divided by 1, so that's 0. Cosecant theta, that's 1. I'm going to go ahead and write these over. So cosine theta over sine theta. Cosecant theta, that's 1 over sine theta. So we just look at the sine theta. 1 divided by 0, that's undefined. Secant theta is 1 over cosine theta. So 1 over 1, that's 1. And then tan is simply, cotangent is 1 over tan. And so tangent was 0, so for cotangent we have 1 over 0, which again is undefined. Okay, so not too bad. So let's take a look at pi over 4. Pi over 4, they're both root 2 over 2. And then tan is simply the ratio of those two, so something divided by itself is 1. Cosecant theta, that's 1 over sine theta. So 1 over root 2 over 2. Well, that's the same as 2 over root 2. Get that fraction out of the bottom. And so we have 2 root 2 divided by 2. Note the 2's are going to cancel with each other, so all we're left with is root 2. So cosecant theta, that's root 2. Secant theta, it's going to be the same thing since both the x and y coordinates are identical to each other. And then cotangent theta is 1 over tan. 1 divided by 1 is 1. Alright, so next, now we're at pi over 3. So for pi over 3, now we're dealing with these two coordinates here. The x coordinate is 1/2. And then the y coordinate is root 3 over 2. So for tan theta, we're going to now take the ratio between these two. And so let's go ahead and work this one out. Again, tan is cosine over sine, so we have 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. The 1/2's cancel. And so we're left with 1 over root 3. Get that square root out of the bottom. And so we're left with root 3 over 3. So that's what goes on right there. Alright, next one, 1 over sine. So that's going to be, so it was a sine, square root of 3 over 2. So that's 1 over root 3 over 2, which becomes 2 divided by root 3. Get that square root out of the bottom. And so we have 2 root 3 over 3. Okay. Secant theta. 1 over cosine theta. 1 over 1/2, which is just 2. Cotangent theta, 1 over tan. So that's 1 over root 3 over 3, which is the same as 3 over root 3. Get that square root out of the bottom. And you end up with 3 root 3 over 3. Of course, the 3's cancel, and you're left with root 3. There we go. One or half of a column left to go. Let's go ahead and finish it off. We're at pi over 2. We're up here at this point here, which is going to be, of course, 0, 1. The x-coordinate is 0, cosine. Y-coordinate is 1, sine. And so tan is going to be sine divided by cosine. That's 1 over 0. That's undefined. Cosecant. 1 over sine. 1 divided by 1 is 1. Secant. That's 1 over cosine. That's 1 over 0, which is undefined. Alright. And finally, we're at tangent theta. So for tangent theta, we're going to use one of the other definitions. Instead of saying 1 over tan theta, we're going to look at cosine theta over sine theta that we talked about before, since we can't really do 1 over undefined. So cosine theta is 0, and we divide it by 1, so the answer is just 0 for that one right there. Okay, that's it. That is everything filled out. I will see you guys next time.